If everything is going to change and we have no guarantees that our efforts will generate the results we want, and we should not be attached to those results, well then, why bother? Why do anything? Why not just sit and meditate? Oh, actually, why even meditate if the end result of the meditation is just as unknown? Hi, it's Margaret Maloney, and welcome to Season 3 of the Death Dhamma podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so appreciative that you are part of my community. And yet, I seek not to be attached to the idea of the podcast or even to the idea of our community. And that's our topic this season: attachment, clinging, and aversion. What happens when we really want something? What happens when we really don't want something? And what does it do to our suffering and dissatisfaction? Let's dive in and find out a little bit more with today's episode. In the previous episode of the Death Dhamma podcast with Casey Howe, Casey and I spent some time discussing compassion fatigue. And he shared that aside from the physical aspects of a caretaker's job, compassion fatigue is about attachment to expected results. And being attached to expected results is not just about caregiving. We work toward plans and goals in many aspects of our lives. Heck, in the secular world, I teach people about planning and carrying out those plans. Should we all just stop? It's easy to get tangled up in that line of thinking, right? Don't give up, though. Stay with me, and let's consider the teachings. The Buddha did plan things. When he first taught the turning of the wheel, it was not just some random talk. He actively decided to teach the cessation of suffering. He spent the rest of his life wandering and teaching. When he taught, he used specific stories and lessons with certain individuals or groups to best communicate his message. If you read or listen to the suttas, they do not end with the Buddha saying, "You must believe this," or "You have to do that." It's up to the recipients of the teaching to take it and embrace it. The Buddha shared a whole system with, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. A path, a way to follow, a way to live our lives. So yes, there is a plan and a goal to become free from suffering. Now, I don't know this for an absolute fact, but I do not think the Buddha was walking around with a quota. Open the eyes of 30 people per day and at least 900 per month. He was offering what he knew to be the truth. I think it's fair to say that he was not attached to the outcome. In fact, when he first awakened, he didn't want to teach. This passage from Samyutta Nikaya 6.1 expresses his thoughts. "Enough now with teaching. What only with difficulty I reached. This Dhamma is not easily realized by those overcome with aversion and passion. What is abstruse, subtle, deep, hard to see, going against the flow, those delighting in passion, cloaked in the mass of darkness, won't see." As the Blessed One reflected thus, his mind inclined to dwelling at ease and not teaching the Dhamma. Then Brahma Sampati, a deva in the Brahma world, appeared and said, "Lord, let the Blessed One teach the Dhamma. Let the One well gone teach the Dhamma. There are beings with little dust in their eyes who are falling away because they do not hear the Dhamma. There will be those who understand the Dhamma." And so he taught. Out of compassion, he taught, because some would understand. Not with goals or numbers, and not with attachment to the results. And we practice. And we plan to study and meditate and follow the Noble Eightfold Path. Following a path requires action, and actions can come from planning. Sure, you can say that you do not plan your practice, you meditate when you feel like it. But that spontaneous act of meditation came from your understanding of Buddhism and a desire for something. And that means that you are working towards something in your spiritual life. And I would argue that that's a plan to step away from suffering and step towards enlightenment. A challenge so many of us face in having a goal for our meditation is that we have a goal for our meditation, right? I'm going to sit down and meditate for 45 minutes and it's going to be great and peaceful and then nothing will bother me. And then you meditate. And perhaps it goes as planned. Also, perhaps not. And you might label that meditation as good or bad or successful or a failure. And now there's attachment to results. Great, you say. Fine, Margaret. I'm going to sit down and meditate and I don't care what happens. Okay, now, let's begin by considering non-attachment versus detachment. Non-attachment does not mean apathy or lack of caring. It means that you are not holding on to expectations of what will happen during your meditation. You accept it as is. You meditated, and this thing happened. You fell asleep, or the landscaper's leaf blower distracted you, or you kept thinking about work, or you meditated. Detachment means that you are just separating yourself from experience, trying not to associate with any of it. Some may also think of apathy as the way to non-attachment, but non-attachment is not uncaring. It is recognizing that your meditation was a certain way and not going down a path of either pride or shame about the meditation. You meditated. And meditation is part of your plan for your spiritual growth. And as much as you and I both may try not to cling to expectations from our meditations, we are following the Noble Eightfold Path for a reason. So in some sense, we are seeking to act a certain way to achieve an outcome. So is this an attachment? I find this explanation from Thanissaro Bhikkhu in his work called The Weight of Mountains to be very helpful in terms of how we can use clinging. It goes like this. The Buddha found that the way to go beyond clinging is to turn our 4 ways of clinging into the path to their own abandoning. We'll need a certain amount of sensory pleasure in terms of adequate food, clothing, and shelter to find the strength to go beyond sensual passion. We'll need right view, seeing all things, including views, in terms of the noble truths, to undermine our clinging to views. And we'll need a regime of the 5 ethical precepts and the practice of meditation to put the mind in a solid position where it can drop its clinging to precepts and practices. Underlying all this, we'll need a healthy sense of self-love, self-responsibility, and self-discipline to master the practices leading to the insight that cuts through our clinging to doctrines of the self. So we start the path to the end of suffering, not by trying to drop our clingings immediately, but by learning to cling more strategically. In terms of the feeding analogy, we don't try to starve the mind. We simply change its diet, weaning it away from junk food in favor of health food, developing inner qualities that will make it so strong that it won't need to feed ever again. The Pali Canon lists these qualities as 5. Conviction in the principles of karma, that our happiness depends on our own actions. Persistence in abandoning unskillful qualities and developing skillful ones instead. Mindfulness, concentration, and discernment. Well, I don't know about you, but I find that concept of clinging strategically to be very useful. Yes, we can make plans. It is about our intentions behind those plans, and also about how we react when those plans change. You seek to live your life in a certain way, intentionally following a path with a direction, and also an acceptance of how things are. And that acceptance of how things are is so important to our ability to stop the clinging. Those plans, whether spiritual or secular, will change. Those plans are not self. And yes, this means you make plans in other aspects of your life as well. Plans in your career, plans with your education, your personal relationships, Take the actions today that should be taken. So let's consider this passage from the Majjhima Nikaya, 131, Bharakkarata Sutta, an auspicious day. This is one of the passages. You shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right there. Right there. Not taken in, unshaken. That's how you develop the heart, ardently doing what should be done today. For who knows, tomorrow, death. There's no bargaining with mortality and his mighty horde. Whoever lives thus ardently, relentlessly, both day and night, has truly had an auspicious day, so says the peaceful sage. It comes back to what should be done today. And what should be done today, of course, it sets the tone for what happens tomorrow. We don't know if there will be tomorrow, but we still want to take the right actions today. Let your intentions be skillful and pure and plant seeds without expectations. But if you never plant the seed, nothing will ever grow. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts, your suggestions, your own stories about attachment. So follow this link, I'm going to read it to you in a minute here, to leave me a 90-second message with your ideas and suggestions. You can go to https://www.speakpipe.com/death_Dhamma_podcast. I suppose you could also just use your favorite search engine to say SpeakPipe Death Dhamma Podcast. And there you can record an audio message for me. And be sure to come over to margaretmaloney.com. That's MargaretMeloni.com and join the community. You've been listening to the Death Dhamma Podcast with your host, Margaret Maloney. Thank you so much for being here. Come find me on margaretmaloney.com, MargaretMeloni.com. And until we meet again, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at ease, and may you be free from suffering. Bye for now.